The Florida State Seminoles feel like they did everything they needed to do last season to get a postseason bid. They went undefeated with a conference championship, and even that wasn't convincing enough to put them into the college football playoff. Mike Norvell's Florida State Seminoles are looking for a lot more than revenge. They're looking to show the nation that Florida State is back as a national contender. Can Florida State make the college football playoff and hopefully do what they couldn't do and try to contend for a national title in 2024? You're about to find out my thoughts here in this video. What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today, and welcome to prediction season. I predict all 134 teams in the nation. I'm doing that once again this summer. And guys, that means I'm doing your favorite team. So what are you doing? Hit the subscribe button, ring the bell so you know when that video gets uploaded. And thank you for watching this video. Help support my channel in more ways than you can even imagine. And if you want to continue to support what I do here on YouTube, please like, comment, share, and anything else you do to interact with the channel help support what I do here on this platform. I greatly appreciate everything that you guys do for me and my channel. And now, without any further ado, let's talk about Florida State football in 2024. How do we do that this year? Well, we're going to go ahead and take a deep dive into the team's offense, the team's defense, and then we will game by game preview and predict Florida State's 2024 football schedule. Makes sense? Good. Let's go ahead and dive on into it. But before we do that, couple footnotes. Right over here, you're going to be seeing the stats, both offensively and defensively, that the Florida State Seminoles put up last season, as well as for your viewing pleasure, right below the team's logo, I have put their coaching staff again, respectively, offensively and defensively. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the Florida State Seminoles in 2024, one of college football's feel-good stories last season. Looking to continue their momentum here in 2024. Now, Jordan Travis was the quarterback of this team last season, led a really good passing game led by a really, really good group of wide receivers. We'll talk about that position grouping when we get there. But right now, the focus is on Jordan Travis. 2,756 yards, 20 touchdowns and 2 picks, 64% completion percentage. Unfortunately, there was an injury down the stretch that led him to being out for that ACC championship game and probably would have been out for the college football playoff game as well. So Tate Rodemaker took over. Nope, he's gone too. He is over to Southern Miss. 510 yards, 5 touchdowns, no picks on 57% completion percentage last season. And while Brock Glenn comes back and Luke Croman-Hoke is a very talented freshman, they went and got a transfer from the portal. An old Clemson product returning to the ACC, most recently at Oregon State, is DJU. Hasn't necessarily lived up to the super huge, lofty expectations he had when he was back at Clemson, but he emerged at Oregon State as a really darn good quarterback. Last year, 2,638 yards, 21 touchdowns, and 7 picks. You'd like to see that touchdown-to-interception ratio get a little bit better, but DJU brings what Jordan Travis does. Experience, playmaking, abilities. DJU will likely be that starting quarterback for the Seminoles here in 2024. What are his weapons going to look like? Well, they're going to change a lot from last season. Trey Benson, the leading rusher of this team, 905 yards and 14 touchdowns, is off to the NFL and gone through the portal are Rodney Hill and CJ Campbell Jr. But this is a team that still has a loaded backfield. They kind of utilize a 2 backfield system. They have a true halfback and a running back. Lawrence Toafili probably will be leading this unit. 463 yards, 4 touchdowns for him last season. Plethora of other talent is in here as well. Keziah Holmes and Samuel Singleton Jr. return for this team, as well as you do get a couple players over from the transfer portal. And there's some very talented ones there at that. Roydell Williams, he comes over from Alabama, and then Jalen Lucas comes over by way of Indiana. It doesn't stop there. You got a very talented freshman in Cam Davis coming in to hopefully make an impact in his first year as a Florida State Seminole. The wide receiver room is going to be completely overhauled, as well as some star wide receivers in Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson. Top 2 targets for Jordan Travis and company last season are gone. 658 yards, 11 touchdowns for Coleman, 617 yards, only 2 touchdowns for Wilson last year, as well as Winston Wright has gone through the portal, as is Vandrevius Jacobs. But a lot of talent still comes back to this wide receiver room. Ja'Kai Douglas, Deuce Spann. Those are some pretty good names from Florida State last season, especially that of Douglas, 243 yards for him last year. Hakeem Williams, Kentron Poiter, both of those guys are going to be coming back, and you do get some talent over from the transfer portal there as well. Malik Benson is going to be coming into this program. He is also by way of the Alabama Crimson Tide, and Jalen Brown is a former LSU Tiger that is going to look to make an impact with the Florida State Seminoles. Tight end room, you do lose Jaheim Bell. He will now be playing on Sundays, and Marcuston Douglas is now off to the transfer portal. He has since transferred over to, I believe it is Arizona State. However, Kyle Morlock and Jackson West do come back. Another impact freshman on the offensive end is Landon Thomas. And with Bless Harris and Thomas Schrader off from the offensive line, your offensive line has a mix of old and new this season. Maurice Smith, Darius Washington, Jeremiah Byers will be coming back, as well as Keandre Jones and Robert Scott. Don't know why there are two ands in there. Sincerely apologize for that. TJ Ferguson and Richie Leonard are a couple names that are going to be coming over here through the transfer portal to give a boost to this Florida State offensive line. So talking about Florida State's offense here, again, it is a completely retooled unit with a little bit of, with a mix of new and old faces. I still think it's going to be a pretty good offensive unit here. The pass game may take a dip and the rush game may improve, but I still think they're going to be right around 400 yards per game at least. That the yards per game might actually take a step forward here for Florida State this season. There's a lot of talented football players here, and again, with the mix of guys that have been in the system versus guys coming over in the portal versus, or I should say, with the impact freshmen that are coming in as well, it's going to make for a very interesting relationship with offensive coordinator Alex Atkins and this bunch. But with the experience at quarterback DJU, the plethora of talent they have at running back and wide receiver, I think they're going to have a pretty solid offensive line this season as well. Florida State's offense should still be one of the best, if not the best, the ACC will have to offer in 2024. Defensively, there was a lot of good and a lot of bad with this Florida State defense last year. The pass defense was sensational. It was really, really good. The rush defense, yeah, it definitely ended up having its troubles. And a lot of their better players on the defensive front are gone, including 3 NFL caliber players that are now going to be playing. Of course, they're off to the NFL on Sundays. Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, and Fabian Lovett are all gone to the league, as well as some guys that are gone through the portal. Edmund Ray and Briggs are all going to be finding new programs to play for in 2024. Just to give you an idea of how impactful these players were, Jared Verse, 41 tackles, 9 sacks for the Seminoles last season. Braden Fisk, 46 tackles, 7 sacks last season. And then Fabian Lovett, once I find his stat line here, 22 tackles and 1 sack as well. He was a force, even though the stat line doesn't really show it. So your defensive room, or I should say your defensive line room, is going to look like this. Patrick Payton comes back. Joshua Farmer and Byron Turner Jr. are all going to be names that are coming back here to this defensive line room. Patrick Payton, he had 43 tackles, 7 sacks last year. He'll be one of, if not the best defensive linemen in this room, but a plethora of guys come over through the portal. Marvin Jones Jr., Grady Kelly, I will butcher this name, so I apologize profusely, to Tomiwa Durojaye, he comes over from West Virginia, and then Sione Lolohea is coming over through the transfer portal there as well. So a plethora of transfers to come in and try to replace the talent lost on the defensive line. In the linebacker room, you do lose 2 pretty notable players there as well. They were your top 2 tacklers who will be playing on Sundays. Tatum Bethune and Kalen DeLoach combined for over 140 tackles last year. Kalen DeLoach ended up having 7 sacks, each of them with a pick last season as well. So your linebacker room will look like this. DJ Lundy, Omar Graham Jr., and Blake Nicholson are all returners to this room. DJ Lundy, the 3rd leading tackler on the team last year, 54 tackles, did have 2 sacks, had an interception himself as well as some guys that are going to be coming over yet again from the transfer portal. Sean Murphy comes over by way of Alabama, and Cam Riley is from that of the Auburn Tigers. Your cornerback room, Renardo Green and Jarian Jones. Do I even have to say it again? Of course I do. They are off to playing on Sundays. Greedy Vance leaves through the transfer portal, and Akeem Dent in the safety position is going to be gone to the NFL as well. Dent, 44 tackles for him last season. You go all the way down here. Renardo Green was a really, really good player. 43 tackles, 12 passes defended for him. And then Jarian Jones, another impact corner here for this team, will be seeing his way onto an NFL roster. So in the defensive back room, this is a really big get back for this team. Fentrell Cypress, the former Virginia transfer, and of course I say Cypress, but it wasn't spelled that way. It is fixed now. Fentrell Cypress, the former Virginia transfer, does come back. And he was a really good player for this Florida State team last year. 40 tackles, 7 passes defended, and he was one of the Seminoles' better corners last season. That's a big get back. Azaire Thomas is also coming back. Quindarius Jones returns, and Omarion Cooper is a transfer that comes into this room. He's over from Colorado. Was a pretty good defensive back over there. Safety position, Shaheem Brown, Kevin Knowles, and Conrad Hussey will be coming back. Earl Little Jr. and Devontae Brown come in through the portal as well. One by way of the Alabama Crimson Tide for Earl Little, and Devontae Brown is over from the Miami Hurricanes. And hey, kickers are people too. Let's show them some love. Alex Mastromano will be coming back to do the punting duties, and Ryan Fitzgerald is back as that place kicker. Defensively, is the rush defense going to improve in 2024? I think that is the big question. I'm not really sure yet. I kind of have to see it play out on the field. But again, much like the offense, you have a mix of returners as well as a mix of transfers and even some impact freshmen that I didn't mention here. I feel like freshmen are going to more impact the offensive side of the ball than the defensive side of the ball, just with the amount of transfers that the defensive side of the ball did get. I think this team and Mike Norvell reloaded very nicely through the portal, especially on the defensive end, and I think it'll pay its dividends here in 2024. I don't think the secondary is going to be as electric as they were last year. I mean, you lose a lot of really, really good players there. Green, Jones, Vance, Dent. Those are all very good players, but you still have some really good players like Brown and Cypress and Knowles, as well as some of those transfers coming over that will definitely make an impact. The defensive line is going to be solid and loaded yet again this year. Florida State's another one of the scary teams in the ACC this season. Let's take a look at the Seminoles' schedule in 2024. Once my slide changes, there it goes. Any game at home is going to be underlined, while any game on the road will be in italics or that slanted text. And of course, neutral site games are listed accordingly. Any game that gets highlighted in green is a game that, well, guys, I just think the Seminoles are going to win pretty easily. Any game in yellow is going to be a close game that, okay, this other team is going to give Florida State a scare, but I still think the Seminoles pull away and win. And then red, of course, is a loss. So without further ado, Florida State, you're one of the teams to play in week 0 here. I believe, off the top of my head, the only top 25 caliber team that I think you could realistically argue deserves a spot in the top 25 to play in week 0. Maybe SMU as well. But anyway, besides the point, they get Georgia Tech in Dublin, Ireland. So this is the Dublin game this year, and I do think this is going to be a very fun test for both of these teams to open up this season. Now, Florida State should win, and I do have the Seminoles being able to win this game. But Georgia Tech is a team that just continues to climb in the right direction. I think they take another step in the right direction here in 2024. They're going to be competitive. They're going to fight. And Georgia Tech's one of those teams that you just are never going to be able to count out game after game after game. However, when talking about this Georgia Tech team, we know Florida State lost a lot of talent. They replenished a lot of talent there as well. I think the experience at quarterback with DJU will start to take over, and the Seminoles will win that game in Dublin. So from week 0, they go to week 1, and I believe this is going to end up being the Labor Day game, if I'm not mistaken. September 2nd, I do believe, is Labor Day that Monday against the Boston College Golden Eagles. Don't sleep on this Eagles team this year either, but I do think that Florida State is a much more talented team. They will get the win over Boston College, and because they played in week 0, you know how I've been hammering home everyone gets 2 bye weeks. Florida State gets 3. One of them comes right here before what could end up being a pretty tricky game against Memphis. A team that definitely could have made that jump with SMU to the ACC conference. They did not end up doing so. They stay in the American Athletic, but they are one of the better group of 5 teams out there. Memphis is going to give this Florida State team a run. They have very, very good quarterback play year after year. I believe Seth Hennigan is still there. Not positive about that off the top of my head. And some pretty good defensive players. I think Memphis makes this one interesting, but Florida State pulls away at the end. A new ACC member in the Cal Golden Bears, I think are going to go down to Florida State here as well. Cal is one of those sneaky teams that I'm not sure how to really grade them coming into the ACC. Well, again, you'll have to find out when I release my Cal video how I grade them, but they're going to be a team that's going to end up being pretty competitive in this conference. I see them, again, giving Florida State a fight, but the Seminoles pull away late. They're going to be able to win that game against Cal. So the Seminoles I have starting out here 4-0 before this Week 5 game against the SMU Mustangs. Watch out. I have this as a major, major, major trap game because SMU, Preston Stone at quarterback, he's a very impressive player. SMU is going to have good playmakers on offense and on defense. They always do. And Preston Stone, I think, is an elite level quarterback talent. They're going to give Florida State trouble in this game. But I think Florida State's secondary is going to be able to rise to the task. They're going to be able to limit what Stone does. DJU's experience takes over. He outduels Preston Stone, maybe not in terms of numbers, but in terms of his team getting the W. I think Florida State goes on the road in a tough environment, a hard-fought game. They win a close one against the SMU Mustangs. You get back home here against Clemson in week 6. And how about starting off the regular season 6-0 for the second straight year? I got Florida State winning this one against Clemson. This is one of the premier games to watch in the ACC, as it was last season. Clemson is going to be better this season. The defense is still going to be right where it has been. It's going to be among the most physical, most elite defenses in the entire country. And year 2 with Cade Klubnik and Garrett Riley, I think Clemson takes a step in the right direction offensively. I don't think it's enough to get through this Florida State defense, especially with the Seminoles being at home. I think Florida State's going to be able to win that game there, as they will be able to beat Duke after their bye week. Now, don't sleep on Duke. I know they lose Riley Leonard, Jordan Waters, a lot of other talented weapons, and on that defensive side of the ball, they lose some guys there as well. But I still mark Duke as a pretty solid team this year. Manny Diaz coming in to be that head coach. He's been a head coach in this conference before. Don't sleep on the Blue Devils. But I still got Florida State coming there and being able to win that game. I do believe that is a Friday game as well. Then you have to go on the road against Miami, and the schedule started to get tough once you got to the SMU Mustangs. But three really tough back-to-back games, especially the second leg of a back-to-back road stretch here. You win a close one here against the Duke Blue Devils. I do have the Miami Hurricanes beating the Florida State Seminoles. I think Miami's going to be a really, really good team this season. Miami added a ton through the transfer portal. Cam Ward's a very talented quarterback. Damian Martinez, a very talented running back. They have Xavier Restrepo coming back at wide receiver. Really good quarterback, running back, wide receiver trio there. The defensive line has loaded up on transfers. I should just say the defensive side, period, has loaded up on transfers. This is the year for Miami and Mario Cristobal to make that big jump, and I have them beating the Florida State Seminoles to hand Florida State their first loss of the season. But it's okay. Coming back at home, playing a North Carolina team that loses Drake May and a lot of other playmakers. I think North Carolina is going to be a little down from where they have been the past couple of seasons. Still a competitive team, but Florida State needing a bounce back win is going to be able to get that one done. And then you have to go right back on the road and face what some people would consider a top 5 side in the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I think Marcus Freeman's squad is set up very, very well. Hey, I just talked about Riley Leonard earlier in this video. Yeah, he left Duke. He's at Notre Dame now. And, well, I think Notre Dame is set up really nicely. A lot of weapons do leave, but I'm confident in the offensive weapons that they do have, and the defense is going to be among one of the best in college football this season. Give me the Irish to beat the Seminoles, handing Florida State their second loss of the year. But after their third and final bye week of the year, they should have no trouble beating Charleston Southern. And then Florida, man, they're going to be a really competitive team. They lost a ton of talent through the transfer portal. Princely Umanmielen and a ton of others on the defensive line. A lot of their top tacklers on defense, most notably Trevor Etienne, that star running back, is gone. But you still got Montrell Johnson. Graham Mertz, I think, is a quarterback that doesn't get all the credit that he deserves. Florida's going to be really solid this year, very competitive, but they got a tough schedule. They're going to be beaten, they're going to be battered, and Florida State has got this game at home. So I got them beating the Gators and hitting that 10-2 mark on the season. Not a bad record here for Florida State, especially with all the talent that you do lose. I could just as easily see 9-3. A lot of tricky road games here. You have a couple tricky home games against Clemson and Florida to kind of end the halves of your season. But I still think Florida State's going to be a really good team this year. They're going to be right back towards the top of the ACC. They do replenish, to the best of their ability, a lot of the talent that they did lose through that transfer portal, and I think they're still going to be one of the better teams in college football this season. LSU, you're on the block next. Hey, remember to play hard but tailgate harder, and let me know what you think about the Seminoles in the comment section below. Again, LSU, you're on the clock. Goodbye.